Hello, 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 and welcome to the Coaxum Report. My name is Terry Coaxum, and I am your host today. You can join us on OurTV.network. I also encourage you to download the app. I have Emma from Group Operations Manager at Afrite Group, Air Fate Group, and you can watch us live on Amazon, Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV on Roku. And again, I encourage you to join us each week. So today we have Emma. Emma's going to talk to us a little bit about what she does in business. We're going to talk about a few trade missions that she is a part of. And Emma, I don't know if you noticed, but as we're on streaming live here, we're also on WSTX Bloomberg Radio, so folks can listen to us on the radio. And we're also international as well as here and domestically. So don't be surprised if some of your friends and fam tell you that they've seen you on TV. And one of our partners is Tempo. So my show is rebroadcast again on Tempo on Sundays, is what I'm told by my colleagues in the Caribbean. So, John, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us your last name, Emma.
Hi, Terry. Thank you for having me. My last name is Kesserich.
So it's Kesserich. Okay, I don't want to mess it up.
Don't worry. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Emma. Like, Emma, I know you because, of course, you work with Andres, and Andres is like my brother from another mother. And I know him to always be doing these phenomenal trade missions with business. But tell me a little bit about what you do as a group operations manager, and what are some of the other things? Like, how did you get in this place? What I like to do when I get on these shows is kind of introduce my listening audience to my guest.
Yeah.
And then we talk about barriers. We talk about best practices and, of course, big ideas. And then we share solutions with them so that they can be successful. So talk to me a little bit about who you are first. Like, who is Emma? And then how did you get to play in the space that you're playing in? Because it's a phenomenal place to be as far as travel, meeting new people, coming up with all these brilliant ideas and doing things for just to advance both our economy and our world. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, of course, my name is Emma Kesserich, and I'm the Group Operations Manager at Artify Group. I got here today. I actually live in Washington, D.C., and prior to joining the company, middle to beginning of last year, I worked in the government of the District of Columbia for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So I have a government background, and the first 4 years were in the executive office of the mayor, and then the last three were in the economic development office on the international business team with Andreas. So that's actually how we met. And together, during that time, we created and executed the first ever international strategy for Washington, D.C.
Nice.
And so that's how I entered into this space. I always knew that I wanted to kind of be in the international realm, especially with international business. And just, I was in the right place at the right time. And I met, a wonderful person that became my boss and my mentor and friend very fast. And so, when he left the government at the end of 2022, he already had this idea in the works, but he shared with me later. And then in 2023, he asked me to join. Of course, I could not say no. I don't think you would either if you were in my position.
I think anybody can say no to Andres.
Exactly. So, I was very grateful and fortunate to join him in this new venture. Doing a little bit of what I was doing before in the government. And then, of course, we also have a hospitality component, which is newer for me. So it's been, doing things that I love and still learning. And of course, when you work with Andreas, you're always learning. And he's been such an incredible mentor in so many different ways. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm here still in Washington, D.C. I've been very fortunate to travel a lot because of my the work that I do. And now we'll be traveling together soon, which I'm excited to hear about.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it as well. So tell me a little bit. So you tell me a little bit about your career and your background. And of course, what you're doing here at Air de Faye. But tell me a little bit about your, like how did you get to where you are in that space, especially in government? So just full disclosure, I worked in government over 20 some plus years. So I did work for I'm in New York. So here in New York, I worked for a Brooklyn district attorney for 6.5 years in his community relations bureau. Then I went on to work for our leader now, Chuck Schumer, first African American woman to have that job.
Wow.
Worked there for 6.5 years, and then was invited to submit my resume to the Obama administration, and I worked in SBA for 6 plus years, almost 7 years with the Office of Advocacy. And so I've had an extensive career in government, and then of course came back to New York, worked for City Council, worked for the New York State Senate, and so it's always interesting to me,
Yeah.
to see how folks end up in government. Like for me, I just, I knew when I grew up, I was going to be Supreme Court Justice of the United States. And so I was going to go to John Jay and get this, elaborate criminal justice degree and go to law school and then save the world before bedtime and start lifing, right? And I found so many phenomenal things. Like I got introduced to politics when I was like 16 and I drank the Kool-Aid. And next thing you know, I'm like here on my career.
That's
So
how it
how
happened.
did you even end up in the mayor's office? And then globally, we had a great experience here where we got an opportunity with my producer, Anthony. We invited the governor from the Virgin Islands, Albert, to New York. And so Andres had an opportunity to come. We
I
did the whole
remember that.
exchange. It was just a fabulous, fabulous time had by all. And then, of course, there's so many other things that you guys are doing like that. So how did you, one, land in the mayor's office in global, right? And to now, and I mean, your face lights up when you're doing it. So I know this is more like, a passion, as opposed to a job, right?
That's true.
So
That's true.
how individuals that are looking at you now and are listening to our story, what would you encourage them to do as far as, and mind you, I got my notebook out, I'm writing it all down, right?
I do too.
Wow, we got our nuggets. We get nuggets on this show. So we're gonna give some nuggets to those that are listening to us that are saying, hey, Emma Kesserich, this is what she did. This is how she did it. So talk to me a little bit about how that happened for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think based off of your experience, you can understand, you can take a public servant out of the government, but they're still public servant at heart,
Right.
So I think when you're noticing that, it's like I do love to talk about our local government because I'm so passionate about it. And so I guess I can't talk about my past experience without talking about my university experience and where I'm from. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And
Ohio, okay.
Yes. Very glamorous. And I moved to Washington, D.C. To start my undergrad career at American University. I always knew I wanted to do things with international. I lived in England during my high school because of my dad's job. And so I was very fortunate to have that exposure at a young age and during formative years, and understanding that the world is so much bigger than your, small community. And there's so much opportunity and, there's so much out there. So I knew that I wanted to be in DC. It was, the place where everything is happening. And I think whether you like it or not, it's true. And, something that, it always just stuck with me that there was going to be so many opportunities for me. And so actually, I entered the government through a very random occurrence. I was in the right place at the right time. I was very fortunate to meet some people that in Cleveland that they actually were alumni of American University and they had strong ties to our local government. And so when I had shared with them before I went to college that I would be going to American University,
right,
immediately, it just clicked. Oh, do this. Like DC works. And then all of a sudden I know, like I started my classes in the middle of August, and then the week later I'm interning in the mayor's office.
Right. That part.
It really is being in the right place at the right time. So I mean, that story to me is always going to be something that I'm very grateful for. And I didn't know what I was getting into because I think I'd always been, politically minded and active and very socially active in that way. But I didn't know how to go from this overarching goal of, okay, I want to be in international relations, international business, whatever, but I'm entering the local government, And so all throughout my college years, I interned in the mayor's office, supporting the mayor and her chief of staff. And when I say that, I think I was there more than I was in my university sometimes. But,
that's usually how it works. That's usually,
when you have an opportunity, you can't pass it up. So it was incredible, though. I mean, honestly, I learned how to be a young professional in an office space at such an early age. And I had the most incredible mentors in the executive office that really wanted to see me grow and succeed. So it was just a really great environment. As I got through college, I knew that I wanted to like do international business. And someone had mentioned to me, oh, we have this guy that was just hired for international business and he's really good. And I was like, oh, okay. So I put it into people's heads, maybe I need to go talk to this person. I was ignored, but not by him, but just by the office. I think they weren't ready for me to move on yet. And then I said, no, I really think that I want to talk to him. I don't know anything that he's doing. I don't even know his name. And then someone introduced me, and then the rest was history. I met Andreas. He, we had a few conversations very early on, and then he showed me his vision for the city. At that time, I think he had been there for probably 6 months or close to a year. So he was just kind of getting his bearings in local government after a career in the private sector. So, our meeting just happened at the right time. We were in the back closet, and he was like, this is my vision. Get your notebook out. You need to take notes. And then done. So, I was really grateful. That was near the end of my college career. So then at that time, we knew that we were a good fit to work together. And I mean, I'm really grateful they did hire me. And then
let's pause for a minute, because you're like glossing over all of these key nuggets.
Yeah.
That I really need those that are listening to us to kind of hold on to, right? You started off by not being afraid, right? And not being afraid to share your vision, not being afraid to step out on faith and say, hey, I'm going from Ohio to DC and I'm going to make my mark. And here is, putting your vision out there. Here's what I want to do. And so for those of you that are listening to us and you're listening to Emma, I need you to understand that it really is your destiny. Like whatever it is that you believe that you should be doing, you have to put it out there so that you can attract what you need to get you to that next level. And so the other thing that you talked about was talking about networking. You said, well, I wasn't afraid. So I told people what I was doing, and the relationships matter. Your alumni matter. Your mentors matter. Like these are all three things that you that you talked about through your experience that I need individuals that are one, either you're at university or you're mid-career or you're just starting something new. I need you to understand that these are all key components that can actually garner you success to move forward, right? So in this relationship, you found that there was someone that was doing something that you really was passionate about, you really, really wanted to do, and you seeked him out. Like you weren't afraid to kind of seek out who you needed to get what you needed to take it to the next level. And it's something that, a lot of times, especially as women, we sit on the sidelines and we don't ask for what we need, right? And so you're telling me about this experience, and I want folks to understand that you can do this. You can do that if there is something that you're passionate about. Like you hear Emma, Emma is speaking and her whole face is lighting up, like she's excited, she's animated about all of the things that she's done, but it's because she loved what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so I need to make sure that individuals that are listening to us, whether they're listening to us in St. Kitts or they're listening to us in Africa or they're listening to us in South America, I need them
to matter where.
Whatever it is that you want to do, that these experiences that Emma is sharing with us are key experiences to take you to the next level. And it started with her not being afraid to step out on faith, right? She knew that she wanted to do this. She came to the big city of Washington. For me, it was the big city of New York, right? Yeah. And decided to make her mark. And in doing so, she took on an internship. And that's another thing. I teach at Medgar Evers College, also have taught at John Jay and other colleges. A lot of time my students are like, I can't afford to do an internship. You can't afford not to do an internship.
It's true. It's true.
So, and Emma is telling you through her experience, this internship helped to really mold her next steps, right? So that experience that she gained by working in the mayor's office in DC was able to give her some key relationships, some key colleagues, and more importantly, now her new boss.
Exactly. You can't ask for better than that, and I think to your point, since I graduated and I started working, full time, I have started to see a shift that there are more paid internships, which I think is excellent because it does reduce that sort of, anxiety of, okay, I'm going to school. School is expensive. I know I need the work experience. How can I get that? And I think that's, it's a great way to help everyone grow.
That's right.
And I think you're right. You can't afford to not have an internship. It's hard. And I know that it's competitive, but it's worth it because ultimately there's two things. Like I mentioned, for me, I learned the etiquette of being in office. I learned how to email. I learned how to follow up. I learned how to ask for things and, grow up. But also I met so many amazing people that really they knew that I wanted to learn, so they took a chance on me, and they continued to help me in my path. And these are people that I still talk to today,
See?
where when we see each other, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? That are still rooting for you. And I think when you're in the right place, and it's not always easy to find that right place, and the right place isn't always the right place. But trying to get the most that you can from that.
Right. And I think that's another key, being in the right place and understanding when you're in the wrong place.
Yep.
Sometimes we are in the wrong place, but we're holding on to this experience. And so what I encourage you to do is to make sure that this is the place that you want to be in to take you to the next level. I don't want to have my listening audience get stuck. And that can be a barrier. That can be a huge barrier to your
Yeah.
success if you're in the wrong place and you continue to stay there because there's no growth, there's no movement, and more importantly, there's no love. And if there is no passion behind what you're doing, then it's very hard to give your 110%. So I
Exactly.
encourage you to have the right person in the right seat at the right time to do the right thing.
Oh, and also not every internship is going to be your dream job.
No,
You know what I mean? I mean, you could be something completely opposite of the career path you want to take.
right.
You're still learning so much more. It contributes to you feeling, well-rounded. And I think that being a well-rounded person in any workplace is such an asset.
Absolutely. So gaining that experience,
Mhm.
gaining new colleagues and mentors,
Yeah.
and being a mentee as well as a mentor to others,
Mhm.
making sure that you're not afraid to step out on faith and ask for what you need. Don't
Yeah.
sit on the sidelines. Come to the front of the room. Sit at the desk,
Mhm.
at the table. It's one of the things I tell my students all the time. I tell them, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
It's true.
It's not the decisions are being made; they're being
Right.
made. They're just being made for you and not
Yeah.
by you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're finding out later.
Yeah. So I encourage them to be at the table. I remember when I was working for SBA, we had an event in New Jersey. It was a big, powerful event. All the big wigs from DC was coming
Mhm.
down, and all of New Jersey politicians were there. And I remember because when I worked for SBA, I worked in the Office of Advocacy. I was a Region 2 advocate. So I covered New York, New
That's great.
Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands.
Mhm.
And I remember walking in a room, and I walked in with another colleague who just happened to be a woman. I used to work for Chuck Schumer. We
Mhm.
we we, we come from the school. We went through Schumer boot camp, so it's like, how do we get to yes, right? How do we get to yes, right? So
I
I'm
understand that completely.
exactly. I walk in the room, and so all the folks are in the front, and I go straight to the front and sit in the front seat. And she goes, "You can't sit here." I said, "Why not?" She's like, because I said there is no because. This is where I'm gonna sit.
Right,
If you're gonna
right.
sit next to me, you're gonna sit here too. I said,
Mhm.
because I don't do back rooms. I'm
Right,
here as a representative, and so I want to get as much from this experience as I possibly can. I've
right.
actually had roundtables and meetings, and folks come into the room, and folks will come to the table and not necessarily look like us, and others will go sit in the back. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I need everybody at
Yeah.
the table. I need everybody
Everyone
at
is
the table.
equal.
Yeah. Because I need you to be a part of this
Mhm.
conversation and not a part
Mhm.
from the conversation. And I'm
Yeah.
going to empower you in the beginning. I'm going to empower you by inviting you to a seat at the table.
And
And
that's
once
it.
you're at the
That's
table,
really
yeah,
important.
yeah. And then they're able to get the and it's so the conversation is so invaluable when you include everybody.
Mhm.
And so these are all important nuggets, and they can be barriers, but you can't allow them to be. And so that's why I'm mentioning it here, because you were not afraid to ask what you needed. You did not sit on the sidelines, and you were able to move far in what you're doing now, especially internationally. So now let me talk a little bit about any barriers. So I know for me, one of the biggest barriers was just leaving home in South Carolina and coming to New
Mhm.
York and basically being a broke college student. And
Mhm.
so one of the things we mentioned about internships, sometimes you can't afford or you don't believe you can afford
Right.
to take an internship, but there's so many other opportunities out there. They're paid internships. So that's one of the things that I encourage young people to seek it out. I know at my university and even at my daughters who went to Syracuse,
Mhm.
there's tons of scholarships and money available. And all you do is write an essay or you
Yep.
have something going in, if you're left-handed, if you're right-handed, if you're a woman, people
Right.
don't know
Right.
because they don't seek them out. And so I encourage you, if you're listening and you're at university, seek out some of these opportunities so that you can be able to afford to go get that experience from the internship. And a lot of times in these internships, you decide if that really is your job.
Yeah.
I remember going to do an internship at Victim Services, and then I did an internship at mediation, and I kind of figured out what I did and did not want to do based on those internships. So when I went into a paying job, I kind of really felt that I was in a place that I needed to be in when I got to the DA's office because of all those other experiences. So I encourage
Yeah.
you to do that. So what were some of the barriers to your success? Like, what are some of the things that, especially now, because you're doing international travel now, and I know things have changed post COVID, right?
Mhm.
So what are some of the things that you can point to that has been a barrier? And then we're going to talk about some of the best practices and big ideas. Of course, we're going to end with some solutions because I want individuals to travel more. I want them to be
Yeah.
encouraged to travel more. And I have to say, full disclosure, I have custody of my great nephew, he's 5, and so I bought him this toy called Orbits, right? And it's
Mhm.
a globe, and he gets to point
Oh,
his phone, his laptop, he has a tablet, and pick any place in the world, and it'll teach you about that place in the world. So
that's so
I
cool.
want him to be able to travel the world and
Yeah, I want that.
is right.
That's really cool. I love that. I need to get that for my 2 nephews.
Please.
I love that. No, I mean, I think talking about barriers, I mean, it's different for everyone. For me, definitely, I've always been the youngest in the room. Even when I was in the mayor's office, early college student, I was in a big room, but I was always the youngest person. And so teaching myself by learning from others how to be that young
I
professional
like that.
mentioning.
Teaching myself by learning from others. I'm writing that
Yeah,
down.
it's true, because especially, and you know this very well, working in the government, everything is so fast paced. So
Mhm.
you have to act accordingly. And I think looking back when I was in the mayor's office, um, it was so fast paced that people didn't really focus on the fact that I was young. It was like, oh, you're just another person that can help us deliver the message,
That's right.
and reach. And I love that,
That's right.
and it's every office is different. And so, even when I'm engaging with, our local business community, I do feel like sometimes I have the barrier of being young. Now I'm a little bit older than I was, and I've built, more of a reputation, I think, or I know more people now that people can look past that. But when
Right.
you're meeting people, that is, I look young. I know people see that, and it can be a barrier.
And
Um,
it can be. And one of the things that I love that you're saying, and I need others that are in
yeah,
your space or looking to be in your space to understand that, you know, um, you have to just show up, right?
yeah,
And it's really important for you to show up and own your expertise, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of times we show up and we go, oh, I'm the youngest one in the room, maybe I won't speak. No, I need you to
right.
show up and I need you to speak,
It's
because
true.
that is how your expertise will shine through.
Right.
And then it also give you opportunities to do other things that you may not have been considered for because of your age. So I think that's
Exactly.
really important.
I completely agree with you. And I think, one of the blessings that I had working for the government is that even if I didn't know people in the community, I knew of them because, they might be in a press conference with the mayor or so and so, so and so. So I was able to really remember a lot of faces and names and things that they did.
And
So if I saw
relationships
them,
matter.
they do. And so, when I see them at a networking event or whatever event, I could go up and say, oh, you're so and so. I know you because this, my boss or whatever. And I want to mention this to you.
Right.
And so that was something, is remembering the people that are going to be at some of these
That's right.
events, even if you don't know them.
That's right.
It's really helpful. It makes it easier.
It does make it easier. We got to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, right back, I want to talk a little bit more about those relationships, knowing people,
Perfect.
remembering people, and also nurturing those relationships.
Yep.
We'll take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dance, oh, don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too? Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. Mr. Latest in Caribbean news? Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too? Tempo.
Today we're taking a little vacation on the west end of St. Croix, visiting a seaside restaurant called the Beachside Cafe here at Sandcastles on the Beach.
The atmosphere is just wonderful.
You just feel very welcome when you're here.
Hi!
I'd like to introduce Chris and Ted, who are the owners of Beachside Cafe and also Sandcastles on the Beach. This is amazing!
Thank you.
Sandcastle on the Beach is quiet and friendly, relaxing.
I often entertain guests, and this is the one place I always try to bring people.
Tell us a little bit about the hotel.
Well, the hotel is a 25-room hotel. We have 10 different room types within that. We also have, of course, our greatest asset, the ocean out there, which our side of the island is very calm typically. So it's the best swimming beach and also great for snorkeling.
And just walking, doing a nice walking beach tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Best beach access is right here, so we love them.
And we're also fortunate we have just up the way Sandy Point National Park, and then Frederickstead Town is just a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're really fortunate to be in this perfect spot.
Hi, this is Stanley Campbell coming from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We just had a meeting in there, and I can tell you they're fired up about this campaign. We got the AFL-CIO endorsement. This is a very powerful thing in the state of Florida, and electrical unions are the heart of that endorsement. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Coaxum Report. I am super excited. I am here speaking to Emma, and Emma has been sharing a lot of great nuggets about her experience, and it really has been very eye-opening. She's talking about her experience, in university, and how just not being afraid to step out on faith and to move forward to whatever it is that you have in your dreams and your trajectory. She talked about networking, how networking matters, how mentors matter, how relationships matter, and how all of these things were able to really help her get to the next level in her career. And Emma is, a bit of an anomaly because she is all about global. And I think global. I don't think women global. I think, but it's a great space. And I'm glad that she's here and she's sharing it with us. And then we were talking just before we went on break, and she said, teaching myself by learning from others. And I was like, oh, I got to hold on to that nugget right there. So one of the things that we talked about some of Emma's experience and coming from Ohio, coming to DC, working in the mayor's office, and all of the great things that did, and working in the capacity of an internship, and just having young people understand that it's really important for us to be in these experiences so that we can meet new people, so that we can have these awesome experiences and make sure that you're in the right place. So if you find yourself in an internship and it's just not working for you, or even in a job, Emma's like not afraid to take it to the next level and to find the right place at the right time for you, right? So one of the other things we talked about is alum. And I mean, it's really important when we're looking at relationships and we're thinking that relationships matter. And Emma, I don't know if you know, my business is all about relationships. So my business is called Coaxum Connects, connecting you because relationships matter, right? So when you're talking about the networking opportunities and you're talking about the relationships and you're talking about the mentors and mentees, it's important to nurture those relationships. And then one of the things that I wanted to share with you is, I remember when I came into politics. So I came to New York at 16 years old. So when we talk about youth, I get it, right? I graduated from high school. Yeah. I came here at 16 years old. I had a box of vanilla wafers, the clothes on my back, and an idea I was going to go to John Jay College and I'm going to be a judge and all of these things, right? And then I got here and the experience was very different, but I still pushed through, right? But one of the things that when I got into the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, we had a senator at the time. He then became borough president later on. But Marty Markowitz, we used to always tease Marty because Marty was everywhere, right? But Marty said when we were swearing in one of our city council members, he said, I want you guys to remember one thing. He said, the people that you meet and the people that you help, they may remember. The people that you don't help will never forget.
That gave me chills. It's true.
That is what I live my career by. So anybody that I come in contact with, I try to help them. If it's not my job, I explain, listen, this is not my job, but here is who I can recommend. Yeah. And then I'll call that person and say, hey, I'm going to connect you to this person so that they can help you. You know, when people call Chuck's office, when I worked in Chuck's office, there were individuals that called because they were at their wits' end. They were calling for city council issues, or they were calling for state issues, not federal issues at all, or even private issues. Right. And I would say to them, listen, this is not what we do, but here's who I can recommend. And they never, ever forgot that.
It's true. And that's the same, when I was in the mayor's office, sometimes I would be answering the front desk calls. I was everywhere doing everything. And that was difficult because, holding the weight of someone's, like you said, at their wits, and, holding the weight of their life. And, I can't do this, but I can give you this. I can do this. I can do this. Right. Sometimes you're pulling things up online and you're trying to run things through and say, click here. So you really, the best way to understand your community is to work for it. And it teaches you so many lessons that I think you saying this, I think we can relate that when you're out of the government, you learn so many principles and values that they stick with you forever. So you can never stop being a public servant.
I call it boot camp. I tell people all the time, it was literally Schumer boot camp. It was like on the ground training. It was like, and I even used some of the books. And when I found out there were books that existed around this, like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Getting to Yes and the Passion Test. Those were all on the job training lessons that I got from Schumer boot camp. Like literally, and it was so bad, right? My daughter, my youngest daughter, she had a habit of just taking no, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's good in some things, but that's
Right.
not good in all things. So she would call me up and she said, well, my professor said I couldn't do this. And my professor said, I'm like, did you try this? Did you speak to this person? And that, right?
Right.
So then I was like, you know what? Enough of this. You go into Schumer boot camp. So I sent her to do an internship at Senator Schumer's office. And I mean, she was like, okay, we're coming to this parade. No, he's not. No, no, no. Oh, yeah, we're coming. So now how do we get together? And she literally learned the lessons in that internship that I had been trying to teach her entire life.
That's amazing.
So it is literally, when you say internships, it really just kind of fires me up because I know how important they were to me. I know how important they were to my children. And I encourage, those of us that are able to do internships to please take advantage of them. And right now, currently I have 3 interns that I'm working with at Medgar Rivers College over the summer. They're doing a summer internship. So they're working on National Night Out Against Crime. They've never heard of it before, right? And they're working on the Agape Fest, where I'm going to be a guest speaker at. And they're working on all these, and they were like, oh my God, this happens in our community and that happens in the precinct. Like they're like, they're in.
Cool.
And the thing about that is once they're in, they're always in. Like you said, you're out of government and you still understand how it works and who you are able to call to get the things you need to take it to the next level.
For sure.
So it's really, really, really important. So now we talked about some of the barriers. We talked about we even talked about some of the best practices and some of the things that we're talking about now. So I want to kind of jump in a little bit to talk about some big ideas. Like, what are some of the big ideas that you are thinking about or are working on through what you're doing right now? Like, I love the fact that you guys are doing international travel and you're going and it's economic development and it is seeing countries in different spaces and being able to meet all these wonderful and amazing people and to do these great things. Like, those are things that you get to cherish and carry with you, but more importantly, you get to take that experience and bring it back to your business and so and do the things that you're doing. That's why I'm super excited about it, because I know that this trade mission that we're doing will give me an opportunity to help even more people. And I didn't share this with you, Emma, but my goal is to die empty. Like, I literally want to pour everything that I learn and that I glean from this world into other people. And so I'm always excited about new experiences. So talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to say, I think it actually does tie in everything that we've talked about. I think when I started working for Andreas, and what we wanted to do was be able to tell the story of Washington, D.C. as more than just the federal government, why you should set your business up here, why you should, consider D.C. a place to do business, and not even just a place to do business, but one of the top places in the United States to do business.
Right.
International companies being the gateway to the United States.
That's right.
And as we started telling all these different people and the different embassies and so on, why DC, they were sold.
Right.
And I became so passionate about DC in a different way because I realized we are so unparalleled in so many facets. I mean, we're top in tech, top in women in tech, top when it comes to entrepreneurial talent, and the list goes on. And, as I shifted into this environment where I'm not just advocating for DC, I'm really, any city, any state, any country, it doesn't matter. Understanding the offerings and being able to tell that story, I love that. I really want to advocate for a different destination for people to do business there and to visit and really tell the accurate, true story that the locals know, and what the locals are proud of.
Right.
And so I think when you say what drives me, I think it's just, building those partnerships and those relationships and being able to kind of drive innovation and a new life into a place. And there's places that they've been doing things the same way for a million years and it works for them, but there's always opportunities to like pivot and innovate, your business community and attach onto new ideas and learn from different countries.
That's amazing.
I think in the US, we are the leader in so many different ways, but, I go to these other countries and I'm like, why are we not doing this? It's simple things.
Right.
And I think being able to tell that story and advocate for that is just, I love it. I love it. So when I talk to a different city and they're like, these are our statistics, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, you're speaking. I love that what makes your city such a great place to be. So I love that's kind of
And that truly is both a best practice and a big idea, being able to share your narrative and your story. I know I tell people all the time that I live in a county of Kings. So I live in Brooklyn, where there is, 2.9 million people, 250 dialects, that there is diversity here that is super amazing, that we have all of these things with tech and we have all of these things with education. And, when I start talking about all the offerings here in Brooklyn, they're shocked. They're very surprised, and then when I add on the other 4 boroughs and then the other 57 counties, because New York City and New York State is 62 counties. Most people think about New York, they're thinking about the 5 boroughs. They're not thinking about Hudson Valley and Long Island. They're not thinking about Erie County or Broome County. They're just not thinking about those places. When I say hot air balloons, they're like, what in New York?
True.
Windmills and you can go to a yoga retreat in Orange County and and they're like, whoa, wait, what? But this is all because of Schumer Boot Camp for me. It was like my leader said, I want to go to all 62 counties every single year, and I want to know what's going on. He has his hand on the pulse of the community, which means we had to have our hand on the pulse.
Absolutely.
Right. And so when you say working for government, it is truly nothing like it. And I really enjoy the experience, but I enjoy it more now because I have access to access. Right. Yep. So my guest last week was Mike Garner, and Mike Garner is Chief Diversity Officer MWBEs for Mayor Adams.
Oh, wow.
And then one of the things he talked about was having access to access, being able to, for me to access, for our leaders, for our MWBEs to be able to access him, to access the mayor, to access opportunities. Right. And I think that's really what you're talking about when you're saying, I want you to tell your narrative, because when you're going on these global trade missions, you're actually offering access. Right. You're actually offering true testimony of what you're doing in DC, or what I'm doing here in New York, or what someone else is doing in Ohio, or even more important, what someone else is doing in a third world country. It is super amazing when I travel, because it's like Pocahontas. I don't know about you, Emma, but I feel like Pocahontas. I learned things I never knew. Oh,
for sure. For sure. And the only way to know it is through traveling and to talking to people, and talking to people that feel just as passionate about where they live as you do. Because, when we do these trade missions, we want to hear from you as the expert. Why should we do business in your city, your state, your country, whatever? Right. And when they tell that story, and if they tell it right, it's like, oh my God, I'm sold. And then you meet other businesses, and you have access to the opportunities, and what are the gaps in that market, and every trade mission that we do, I swear, most people, if not all, they walk away with some sort of lead. That's right. But then also they're thinking, okay, I do my operations this way in DC or whatever city, but I just had this access, this knowledge and innovation here, and I'm going to pivot and do something else. And so that's something that we really promote. Isn't
that amazing? That's amazing.
You never know what can happen until you do it,
That's right. That's right. And the other part that I like about travel is being able to not just share internationally, but nationally as well, right? So I have an opportunity. So my main business, I do business development. So I get businesses certified. I help them get contract opportunities, a motivational speaker and an author. And of course I teach, right? But one of the things that I love to share is what we're doing in New York with MWBEs, right? It's very surprising. I have customers in Boston. I have customers in Atlanta. I am helping small businesses all over this country, right, to get certification and to get contracts. And they're so surprised at how we're able to streamline things here, especially in the New York City government, right? Yeah. They're able to streamline the process so quickly that you're able to get through the process. You understand it. There's people there to help you now get the contracting opportunities. And so when I talk to places like Boston, I'm like, well, here's how we did it. Like, New York is ahead. New York is ahead. And so having to be able to tell that narrative and then say to them, well, here's what you can do to change, because I'm working in your government. Like, I'm watching what's going on with your certification process, and here are some recommendations that I can make. And they're like all ears. So that's the part for me, like seeing a light bulb go off in other places, whether it is in Dubai or whether it's right here, someplace in the United States. It's always super amazing to be able to bring that. Water irrigation is another one. I'm working with a business now out of Maryland, DC. that has a phenomenal product that they're using. And I told them, I said, listen, we can do some international stuff. And so I started talking to Brazil and different places. And they're like, yes, this is the technology that we've been looking for. And even in some places in Africa. But because I have access to access and I can have those phone conversations with individuals that are in government, I can now connect the dots. And I think that that's for me as one of the biggest best practices and big ideas around what we're doing globally. We're all connected. COVID showed us that, right? COVID showed us that if China sneezes, we all get a cold. Literally, figuratively, all over, right? So we are connected, right? So connecting us in a way economically is the thing to do. Like there is enough money in the world for everybody. How do we connect the dots? And so that's what's great what you're doing. So I know, I mean, it's funny how time flies. I know we only have a few more minutes. I got to talk a little bit more about some of the other best practices, because I know that you guys are connecting the dots. And so that's one of the main things. And you're getting the story out, you're telling your narrative. Give me an example of something that was an aha moment for you and some of these travel experiences and journeys that you're taking people on to make sure that they have access to access.
You know, I think always it's centered on the Middle East for me, because my boss, Andreas, he had been going to the Middle East for a few years, you know, and that's really kind of what gave him the inspiration to start his own company. Of course, he'd been a past, you know, entrepreneur, but and I just remember him going there. He went for a fam trip with the government, and he came back and he was like, you know, there's just so much innovation, there's so much opportunity, all this stuff. And you know, we talk about, these are buzzwords in our community, you know what I mean? Like everyone talks about opportunities and innovation. When I had the opportunity to go last fall, I got it. I mean, it's just like, I was like, this is what's like, literally, I was like, oh my God. And he told me, he's like, I know you're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. And he goes back so frequently. The minute that I got there and I started listening to people talk, I mean, and they're straight shooters when they talk, you know, it's okay. This is what we want to do. How are we going to do it? And how can we make this happen?
That's right.
It's such a business-oriented community. And I feel like even though I can be a little governmental sometimes, I do love that, you know, let's get to the point and let's get to the opportunities. And it really, I swear to God, I was coming back after that trip, like waking up at 6 a.m., reading my emails, like I was typing so fast. I mean, I just felt invigorated.
Wow.
And it just, when you have these exposures to these different countries that are doing things so differently, or, you know, maybe there's not as much like, I mean, I live in DC, you know, so everything is talk to this person, then talk to this person, then talk to this person.
Right. I used to laugh when I was in government, because you always have to have a meeting, and then you have to have a meeting after the meeting about the meeting.
And then you have to build a report. It's a lot, you know, and there's something to be said about that. But when you go to other places where they do things differently, it's like, oh my God, we can make progress without all of that.
That's right.
So it just really, it made me realize like what I want to do with my life is to continue to travel and also helping others get that same exposure and understand that, you know, there's so much that we can learn from other people. So that would be my aha moment.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about cultural diversity, right? Yeah. I have, and I know you probably can't see it, but I have a book up here called Kiss, Bow, and Shake Hands, right? And so it was one of my coaches' introduction when I started doing international travel, because she was like, there's some places that you will have to do these things, and you need to understand and not have any feelings about it, because it is their culture. And so you have to have this cultural diversity, right? So I remember so many things. I remember one when I was covering, the Virgin Islands, full disclosure, of course, my producer is from the Virgin Islands. And so I came out of Schumerland. So I'm from Schumerland going to now work with SBA and advocacy. And so I'm doing all of these meetings. I'm trying to get everything in for my little 2-day trip. And so I got everything scheduled, and I'm starting at 8 a.m. because I'm up at 4 anyway. And I'm going to hit the gym. And after that, I'm going to have breakfast, and then I'm ready to go. And so at 7, I need a car. At 8, I'm out the door. And my first meeting, was like, hey, so I see you having a schedule for like an 8:30 meeting. We don't start anything before this time at the Virgin Islands. I was like, say what now? There's like, so if you're gonna go to Rotary, you're gonna go to Rotary at this time, and then we're gonna meet you at and then we're gonna start your day that way. But what we will not do is have a 7:30 meeting on a nothing. So we're not.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
It's different.
That
I
was
know what
like
you mean.
aha for me. That was like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Right. It's difference in cultures. And I mean,
That's
you know,
right.
I if I'm traveling, I can wake up early when I come back home. I've never been a morning person. So like I will wake up early for calls. You know, if we have a call Middle East,
Right.
I'll wake up at 6, 7, whatever time. But that's difficult for me. But
Right.
you know, but I could never make someone in DC wake up early, and I would feel really bad. I mean, most people are up early, but
Right.
they're in like, let me play catch up because I have a full day of meetings.
That's
You
right.
know, so you don't disturb that early morning,
Right.
because that's when they're doing the job. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's
And
true.
that for me is key. That's
Different.
that's key for me. So I get up early in the morning, so I can do those things before the
Right.
phone start ringing or the 5-year-old hits the ground or any of those other things. So
Exactly.
you know it's really important. But I also understand if you return calls at that time, you usually don't have to get stuck on a call. So you
Right.
usually
Right.
start calling early in the morning into the office. Hey, here is something I want to follow up on. I'm going to send you an email on this, and then
Right.
you can send me an email back, and you won't get stuck on a call because those could be time wasters too. I
For
teach
sure.
time management, so I'm always very mindful of people's
Mhm.
time because we all got the same 24 hours in a day. So the success rate on what I'm doing and what Oprah's doing and what Warren Buffett is doing is based on those 24 hours. So I want to make sure that I am spending that time wisely because we may be able to get our money back, but we can't get our
Right.
time back. And so
It's true.
having that, you know, in the back of my mind when I'm really trying to follow, and then follow up is also key, right? Making
Mhm.
sure that you're following up with folk on things you say you're going to follow up on because you
Yep.
don't want to gain a reputation as, oh, we did all these wonderful things, but then there was no follow up.
But then what happened? Right.
Yeah.
You know,
So
we are
those
so
are key.
big about that. It's
Big.
so important, and it's funny. Andreas always makes fun of me. He's like, "Okay, now be the pushy Emma that I know. You need to follow up." I'm so big about following up, and then sometimes I do in my personal life, and I'm like, "Oh, my personal life is not my job, and I need to give people a little more grace in my personal
Right.
life." If so, but it's true.
I love
You know?
it. Give them grace. Give them grace. I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. This is amazing. So, you know, we got a few more minutes. And again, the time goes by so quickly. Folks
I
are like, what am I
know.
going to do for an hour? I'm like, you don't understand. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So, solutions. I want you to kind of end us off with a solution. And then I want you to tell me what you would tell a younger Emma, right? And so, you know, knowing what you know now about your career and your life and all
Yeah.
the wonderful, super amazing things that you will continue to do, I want you to tell me what you would tell a young Emma. But first, give me one solution for all that you're doing now globally that you believe that can really elevate a business that's listening to this. And then tell me about young Emma. What would you tell her about what you're doing now?
I think the solution would be always take advantage of your local resources, reaching out to your local government, reaching out to your chambers of commerce, reaching out, understanding who makes up your local business community, and then talking to everyone, and then following up and show up to the networking events. Show up and be in touch because you are always going to meet someone, even if it's just one person that knows someone else that will connect you, and then boom,
Relationships matter.
It does. I mean, we can all be a little shy sometimes, but you have to push past that and take advantage of what your community offers. And usually there's a lot that's being offered.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I always tell my kids, get involved. You know, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. All right. So young Emma, lead us, end us with something that you would tell the younger Emma about anything. You could pick anything that you just want to leave. And remember, this nugget is going to be felt all over the world, right? So those that will pull it up later and hear this nugget, what would you like to say to them?
I think always trust your gut. And I think that's a little bit cliche. You know, when I was working in the mayor's office, working on local matters, and always in my back of my head, I wanted to do something international. You know, a lot of my peers were interning for all these NGOs, whatever. And I knew that this was going to take me somewhere. I didn't know where. And so people had said, okay, well, when are you going to start doing more international? I said, it's fine. I got it. And then, you know, the universe put me in the right place, continued to put me in the right place. And now I'm the one that's traveling. I mean, I have so much exposure all the time, and I have a great mentor that allows me to grow in this space.
Nice.
So I think this is my dream job, but I trusted my gut even when there was times that I doubted it. And there was times that, you know, people said,
how did you push through? How did you, because that's one of the things I always get as a teacher. They're like, okay, but how did you know? And for me, it's like, you don't, but
You
how
don't.
did you, yeah.
You don't, especially in the government, no one's going to tell you, oh, you did a good job. Oh, I have this in store for you, because things change every day. You just have to have that confidence and understanding that, if there's a reason I'm not leaving it, I mean, don't get me wrong, if it's a super toxic environment, that's a different story. My situation wasn't, but I just think that if you have that feeling, oh, there's something keeping me here, write it out, and then you'll know when it's time to leave. Everyone knows when
Yeah.
it's time to leave. But if you're not sure yet, because you think there's something else out on the other side, trust it and see where it goes. And honestly, when you have your first occasion of trusting your gut and it's successful, you will always do it, So I
I
think
love it.
trusting that is key.
I love it. And believe it or not, you started with that. Don't be afraid.
Don't be
Right?
afraid. Even
Trust
when
your
you're
gut.
afraid,
Don't
don't
be
be
afraid.
afraid.
Don't be
Yes.
afraid. Trust your gut. Don't be afraid. And then one of the things that you had in this particular session was, you said, don't be afraid to ask what you need, right?
Yeah.
So you told people, listen, here's what I'm looking to do. And then it's, hey, there's somebody in the office that's doing this. And you're like, I don't know his name. I don't know the person, whatever.
I don't
But
know
I'm gonna
anything.
find them. I'm seeking them out, right? So trust your gut. Like,
Yeah.
be confident in your ability and your worth. And so,
Absolutely.
Emma, I so enjoy this. This is your first of many. How about that, right? Because you're like, this is the first time I'm doing this. This is your first of many. You're going to do many, many more. You're a natural at it. And I just really enjoyed this conversation because it's so different than any of the others. Like, when I come in and I bring the small businesses on, those are about their experience. This is truly a journey that you're taking, and you're continuing to take this journey, and more importantly, internationally. And so it's important for my listening audience to understand, again, like you said, you lived in England, so you understood there was a world out there. My baby Andrew is understanding there's a world out there because he has orbits, and so he's taking pictures and they're telling him the animals and all these other things.
That is so
but
cool.
You're living it. And I think that's really important. I give you kudos for it. I look forward to joining the trade mission in September. I know it's going to be super amazing.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and then we'll come back and we'll have an after show to talk about all of the experiences that we were able to garner from that. So thank you so much for being a part of the Coaxum Report.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to a follow-up. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.